I'm going to go ahead and assume we're streaming, and it's okay if we're not, no big deal, but we can just go ahead and get rolling. Welcome to the Midday MAHA, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday for anyone who observes. This is our demilitarized zone for discourse, a place we can talk about how we're going to make America healthy again. We talk policy, we talk personal decisions, we talk the market and identifying corrupt corporations. We talk about all sorts of stuff. And we do it in a safe space where it doesn't matter which direction you come from. I guarantee there's things we agree on. Let's figure out what those are and let's figure out how to handle it together. As usual, and as I'm excited to get really into the flow of how we run these spaces, I'm stoked to have Danielle here from the Council on Domestic Relations to kick us off with a little update on what's been going on in the MAHA movement. What are sort of the big news hits and talking points? And then we'll get into talking about like healthy home hacks and ways we can really make our home environments a lot healthier. Danielle, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I think more than really anything grassroots or hair on fire activism today, we just have a few updates on kind of where the conversation is turning since Bobby's press conference this week. Everybody here see that amazing autism press conference?
Why don't you let people know just in case they didn't catch it?
Yeah, so I think we can get that probably posted up in the nest too, a link to it. From maybe Associated Press, YouTube. There were a few outlets that had the whole stream, but essentially Bobby came out letting everybody know what the new data from the CDC is reflecting and that the autism rate is solidly at 1 in 31 now. It was 1 in 36 2 years ago. The current rate for boys specifically, because boys usually have a 3 to 4 time fold increased rate, is 1 in 20. And we're looking at 1 in 12.5 in boys in California. And it's really important that people understand that California actually has a much more rigorous data set. So there are some compelling arguments to be made that the autism rates and the kind of observational data we're collecting in California might be more on target with most of the country than the overall picture we get from the CDC. So it could actually be closer to 1 in 12.5 for boys nationwide. I'm sure that is part of the angle that Bobby is digging into with the plethora of research they're looking at now. But it's really interesting because he made some really profound statements during his press conference, including one that he said autism is an individual tragedy and it destroys families and it destroys our children. And the masses are very divided right now on whether they believe that or not. Some people are standing up offended. Some people, think he's lying. Some people are saying he completely resonated with them and that, his words paint an accurate picture of their life, unfortunately. So I think it's really started to shine some light on what is autism and getting people talking about that spectrum and how maybe it wasn't the right decision that we label everybody with the same thing. Maybe the quirky kid with, social anxiety shouldn't have been labeled with autism. Or maybe we need just a broader understanding of what that is, because I think a lot of people assume that autism has some kind of like testing, and it really doesn't. The diagnosis is rendered based on behaviors. So if you have any of these certain behaviors, you could end up with that diagnosis. And that's not to say that they're all coming from the same place. I'm sure we have misdiagnosis, and I'm sure that in some pockets there may be even overdiagnosis. But the root is now we're seeing division amongst our own people because everybody who kind of collectively agreed that we need this research before is now, some of those people are feeling a little threatened by it. Some of them don't look at autism like a bad thing. They look at it like a gift, right? That's where that kind of stereotype came from. It's part of their identity. It's part of who they are. Some of them think it's special. It makes them some kind of savant. It makes them stand out or have more of a realistic take of the world, or more of an artistic perception of the world, or that they can just see things differently than neurotypical people see things. And, there are very diverse opinions on whether that's right or wrong, or there's a gray area. But regardless, I think our job here is we need to talk about how do we prevent that division? How do we advocate for proper research on this without making people feel like we want to wipe away their identity? And some of that needs to be rooted in a realistic conversation, where you kind of take away the feelings. And listen, I'm speaking as an autism mother. I have a child with autism. He is not profoundly autistic. It is not severely debilitating. At the same time, it is disabling. And there are arguments to be made on the other side that sort of high functioning, is what we refer to them, kids don't have they don't have the same appearance. You wouldn't know necessarily looking at them that they have these issues. So it presents, sorry, that's my grandson. It presents with different complexities when they go out into the world, because everyone looks at them and expects them to behave, quote unquote, normally. And when they don't, neurotypical people have a hard time reconciling that. So
Danielle, it kind of triggered a lot of people, because in the short press conference, he was trying to get to what his intentions were, but I know he used some loose language, and some of my really democratic left-leaning friends are kind of like, well, a lot of people with children that have autism are offended, they're triggered, it's elicited a really profound response in people. And it's a scary thing, because we want to love each other, we want to talk about it, but we don't really kind of know how. And so I feel like you touched on it perfectly. We have to learn how to have this conversation as well, right?
Yeah, we do. And I think one of the talking points that really helps me find the middle ground with people is I say, let's take my kid out of it. I was just having a conversation with a woman this morning who has 3 kids on the spectrum, doesn't think there's anything negative about it, and thinks that Bobby's a liar. So, okay, how do we find the middle ground between you and me? Why do you think what you think? Why do I think what I think? Even take the data out of it, because I can tell you that, she has a different set of data she believes than I do, right? But how have our experiences been different? We don't say this about any other disease. We don't look at I saw somebody, I'm forgetting who it is, I'm sorry, but I saw someone made an interesting Facebook post where they were like, imagine if all the people in like a cancer hospital who were there getting like their melanoma removed or something, like have like a milder version of cancer, if they all just started saying the people hooked up to chemo didn't really have cancer and it wasn't that bad. Like, we don't do that. That's preposterous. And I'm saying that as a mom who does not have a profoundly severely autistic child. My child still has problems, and I completely recognize that it's even worse for others. And it is destructive. It has been extremely difficult to raise a child like that. It is hard for the parents. It's hard for their marriage. It's harder on finances than having a child without those issues. It's hard on all of the siblings. It's hard on the grandparents who don't understand. It's hard in your community and your schools. Every single aspect of your life is made more difficult and more costly. And so that's where I find myself trying to lead people a lot, is let's talk about the economic impact of this and what happens 10, 20, 30 years down the line when all of the parents who are taking care of these kids aren't there anymore and the rest of America has to take care of them.
And as I was trying to remove toxins from my own home, I have a multi-generational home now. We live with grandma and we love it. It might be looked down on, but a lot of the foods that she fed me, 20, 30 years ago were okay. And, and I always try to figure out why we had such a headbutting competition when it came to, hey, I want to do this new thing. And I found, long story short, that, and even me as a mother, a lot of things that I did for my child in the moment, I wanted to believe that they were healthy things to do. So I feel like when Bobby came out and talked about the environmental factors that we all have to work together to face. It almost brings something up inside of you where you have to look at and say, maybe I made some wrong decisions in the past. And that's so hard and it's so scary. And that's why we're trying to approach this topic with kind of a fun front. But do you sense any of that kind of in the progression of the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's like during his press conference, he touched on a few of those things with environmental triggers. And I think we really need to work from an educational standpoint to help the public understand that. I have been teaching that in advocacy and also in childbirth work for well over a decade about MTHFR, different genetic SNPs that are going to impact the way the child can properly detox from anything, a virus, a contaminant, whatever it is, mold. It's not just vaccines. So it's encouraging to hear him say they're going to look at everything. They're going to look at the cofactors, comorbidity in mom and dad. What was their health? What was mom's health prenatally? What supplements did she take? Was she getting, good folate in her diet? Was she consuming folic acid? That's a big thing. In this country, we fortify foods with it. Most pregnant women that I encounter do not know they should be avoiding pastas and grains and all of those fortified foods, and that the folic acid actually blocks them from absorbing folate, and then their baby is depleted of folate, and that can cause midline defects and neural tube defects, and it is linked in some ways, not necessarily causal, but it is linked to autism. And there's research out there showing that while 30 to 40% of the general population has at least one of these MTHFR SNPs that Bobby mentioned, among the autistic population is 98%. So something is there. And if we have 98% of these kids have some impaired methylation and detox pathways, then this is a more sensitive population that cannot be exposed to the same toxins at the same rate that somebody else without those SNPs can be. It's not safe. It's not as safe for them. So I think we do have to start talking about that.
Yeah, I'm encouraged that as he's pledging to go about this work, the researching the data and what we have and doing the good science, that I also see he's pretty much announced that he's removing all pharma representatives from these committees and boards. And that seems really powerful. Did we lose Danielle? Might have lost Danielle. No, there you go. Yeah, that seems really powerful, because how can we trust any of this stuff if the industry reps are still sitting there sort of putting their fingers on the scales?
No, I agree. And, so I think, to Kristina's point, we have to find ways to have these difficult conversations. And she's right. One of them is the reality that we are contributing to the problem. That's not an easy thing to reconcile. I think, and I'm not saying it's easy, but in some ways it might be easier to digest when you actually have an injured child and you walked through that journey with them, and they got their shots or they whatever the trigger was, and then within hours or days they're turning into a different kid and they're never the same again. That sort of forces you to be red pilled. Some of these families who haven't experienced that maybe are not going to, or didn't understand it when they did, are not going to as easily on board being told that they had a hand in doing this to their kids. It's very hard to forgive yourself for being that ignorant and making this one decision that just, had it gone the other way, your child could have been fine. And not knowing all you should have known before you had kids. And you're right, you can go down that road and beat yourself up with it, or you can just join the community of people that already gets it and forgive yourself, give yourself some grace, and understand that we have to move forward and do better. And I know.
Yeah, we've really got to get past that.
Yeah.
Not to sort of shit on anybody who has that sentiment, but it's really counterproductive, right? Like we have to learn what we didn't know and then adjust accordingly. We have to be forward looking on these things. There's really no other way to solve the problem.
I put my kid on a delayed vaccination schedule, and I didn't take into account that it might be hard for the doctor to track the Dr. Sears delayed schedule, and they actually double dosed him on just T-tap in his leg, and he ended up developing a crater. And when I called back, she's like, oh, no, that's normal. And I mean, technically I could go back and sue the medical establishment or whatever, but I screwed up. I wasn't on top of my game. And I think that we need to build a safe environment where we say, I screwed up. Or like, I used to microwave my kids' SpaghettiOs in Tupperware because I was in a hurry and I had to work. Like this pressure to be idealized and a perfect mom and a perfect home, like that stuff needs to die. That's just like, we're not perfect. we're all trying to do. Yeah, we're all trying to do what we can do to keep up. And
you know what? That makes me think of something that I talk to my friends about all the time, because just kind of keeping with the theme of healthy home hacks here, because I think that we completely kind of missed the boat on what a home even is sometimes. And I look at the way I grew up and what people's homes looked like and how they actually lived in them. And today it's so different that it's like everybody wants like a Pinterest home. They almost want the identical same one their friends have, but everybody wants kind of this not really lived in home. The kids are hardly ever there. You're shuffling them around to so many events and extracurriculars and sports practice that you're lucky if you eat dinner together once a week. And I know people like that now, and I go into their homes sometimes, and I'm speaking from the position of someone who works at home, and I have 6 kids, and our house is very lived in, and they're homeschooled. So I come into their homes and it's a stark difference to me. I look at this like, wow, like there's no fork marks. There's no indents in their table. Like their furniture doesn't look like they have toddlers. My furniture absolutely looks like there's toddlers running around here. And that's what I grew up with my whole life, right? But now it's like people are almost uncomfortable in lived in spaces.
Right. And yeah, like homes are meant to be lived in.
Like, oh, you mean you don't have a neutral color scheme on your walls? You mean you haven't painted them gray yet? You guys don't have all the same furniture as your neighbors? Don't you know the Joneses? Like, it's such an odd mindset, and it's extremely unhealthy. It's so hard on most of the women I know. They don't even want to invite people over to their house or engage in real community because they don't think their home is like fit for that.
That's terrible. Yeah, it's funny because it also kind of reminds me of Fight Club. If anybody remembers the narrator character from Fight Club, Ed Norton's character, it starts out he's got this dull, drab 9-to-5 job. He's super bored, and his main form of sort of entertainment and tracking the progress of his life was filling his apartment from the IKEA catalog.
Oh my gosh, no, it's true.
Great analogy, Kirk.
Thanks, man, and it's really nice to see you there, Pale Blue Man. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Kristina told me about this place, so and I know who you used to be.
My alter ego, Kirk.
Kirk out on this platform, and everybody knew him. We used to bounce around spaces, and but Kirk out is here and in the flesh. He still exists with his. It's not a Jedi sword. What did Kirk have as a weapon for the ills in the world?
Oh, well, Kirk had a phaser. Of course, he also had the USS Enterprise, which was pretty dope.
Yeah, he had all he needed was the captain's.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, so we've just been, for anyone who's just joining us, we've been talking with Danielle from Council on Domestic Relations, as we do at the beginning of all of these spaces, to give an update on what's going on in the MAHA movement. And the big thing that's happened over the last couple of days is that Bobby gave this big press conference about autism and pledging to get to the bottom of it, pledging to explore everything from mold and environmental toxin exposure all the way up to like vaccines. And then in just a few minutes here, we're going to get into sort of the title topic of the show about healthy home hacks and how little things we can do in our home can sort of improve our quality of life and make us all healthier. And if enough of us do them, it can even move markets. I do want to let Tucker say whatever is on his mind before we move on to that.
I want an update on the We the People party. I think we've got Tucker like going and gunning for it and running for it.
Yep, and we've got Levi here too.
I connected with him on the back chain to kind of get some things going in New York, perhaps. And I've been getting a lot of great feedback on even Facebook where people have been wanting to get involved but feeling blocked out. So yeah, I would just love to talk to the guys for a second.
Awesome. So Tucker, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, hey guys. Yeah, man, everybody over here in Tennessee is really excited about the We the People party too. We've been talking about it, and we just started a new Facebook group. We're about to start a new group on X as well. And we're going to call it State of Independence. And we're trying to gather nonpartisan, freedom-loving individuals who want to see real change. And we're going to start by gathering a community of people and then kind of just build grassroots from there. And like I had said before, I think it's only going to take about 800 signatures to start the We the People party here in my county specifically. So I think we're going to aim to do that pretty soon. And to the main topic that we were talking about the autism and some of the other things that Bobby has been talking about, one of my perspectives on that is, you know, just being a 28-year-old individual, I don't have any kids. I don't have anybody in my family that is on the spectrum, has autism. But in general, I just see this as an existential crisis. That should cut through all the BS, all the division, all the people that are like, oh, trust the science, and they don't even want to listen to anybody being
all the partisanship and all this. Like, I've seen this for years now, that if it's the Republicans bringing it up, the Democrats will oppose it just because they can't afford to give the Republicans a win. And often it's like the same policy, like Romney Care in Massachusetts, but he was a Republican. And when Obama brings it up as Obamacare, the Democrats love it, but the Republicans hate it. And it was just like, okay, all right, what's going on here?
That's a perfect example. But, you know, just, you know, we were talking about the economic perspective of it. And another thing that comes into play is if the rate of people that are being diagnosed as autistic keeps going up. And as you had said, these are not people, all of them, that feel like they have superpowers. Everybody's not Ben Affleck from The Accountant. So, you know, if we have this rate that just keeps going up with people that are diagnosed with autism, a lot of times people who are autistic have a harder time finding a mate, getting married, reproducing, having children. The birth rates are already not in the best shape as they are. So how I'm kind of seeing the future, if we don't fix this, is humanity is going to go out with a whimper in adult diapers, because we're going to have a huge economic strain because we have so many people retiring and not as many people entering the workforce. And then now a lot of those people entering the workforce or of the age to are autistic and cannot properly work. And that's another strain on the government for supporting individuals, people not contributing to the economy, more people having to retire. Just, you know, either way, that should cut through all this partisan BS and make people listen, because it is existential.
Totally, man. And I'll just share here. Last year, I was diagnosed with ADHD, a combination of ADHD and autism. And man, the life review process that I went through when I realized that, it just made so much sense. I've always struggled in overly structured environments. I've always struggled in like a corporate 9-to-5 environment. My learning style is kind of different. And, you know, I'm very social, and I think that leans more into the ADHD part. Like, I'm great at buzzy conversations that can sort of go all over the place. But it's been a real challenge for me. I'm 42 years old now. I don't have what you would call traditionally a career. And it's in part because I don't really fit. My whole mental model and how I operate doesn't really fit with the expectations and sort of like the checking of the boxes when it comes to the standard American life. And that's challenging for me. And I press, forge ahead anyway, because that sort of like classic ADHD and autistic, like allergy to injustice and can't handle bullshit and can't handle obvious lies or ulterior motives. I just sort of had to craft my life around, okay, well, what do I do with that? And I think that's one of the ways that I fell into grassroots organizing and fell in love with it. And also because you can end up doing something really big and really important in a very sort of decentralized and kind of informal fashion, just through the organic, emergent gathering of people who care about a thing and are willing to keep communicating with each other around that thing to get something done. And I do wonder if going forward, this rate of autism might, like, not necessarily as a silver lining, but might facilitate or even necessitate a changing of this paradigm where the way you have sustainable income is by getting a shitty job that's overly structured. Not that those should entirely go away. In fact, many people very well thrive in those environments, and that's great. But man, what about the rest of us?
You know what's, not to be a complete aside, but I find that a lot of people don't know this, and I only do because I've really nerded out on teaching women about their distinct personal health and why it's different from men's. But most of the like 9 to 5 work schedule and the data that we have on that, the reason that we led toward that largely during the Industrial Revolution is actually because that's the time of day that men are most productive. But the data we have on women shows that they are not the most productive during those hours. So that's always.
Oh, thank goodness. I feel so much better now. I really do.
Like, you know, and we multitask, but yeah, there's something to be said for that, especially when we get in the weeds of like equality and, you know, there's a lot of arguments against women that like, because they are invested in their homes and their children and their minds are kind of always half there, that maybe they don't perform as well as men. But this is never taken into context that like, you're asking both of them to show up and do the same job during the hours that
so
chemically that man's body is going to perform better than the woman's. So it's just, there's so much nuance to it. And with autism specifically, it's not only more common in men, but it's more, it's generally more severe in men. And even when we get down to that more, you know, higher functioning level of it, it's still very different set of rules you have to live by as a male on the spectrum at even that end than somebody who's neurotypical. They're not going to operate the same way. The social cues aren't there. Sometimes even they actually need more structure. So that's an interesting thing that you bring to the table, Damo, because a lot of the time, like, they need something that's maybe not even structured, but they need something that's routine a lot of the time to have a job. It needs to be, I know exactly what is expected of me, and this is the thing I do every day when I go to work.
And I am kind of interested if Bobby gets into sort of that spectrum of autism with ADHD present, because as far as I understand it, 10 years ago, they didn't even think that was possible. And then they started realizing that not only was it possible, it's quite common. So like the ADHD side to me really struggles with structure. The autism side of me needs it. And it's really wild trying to balance and sort of synthesize the two.
Right.
I find with zero structure, that's not actually better for me than too much structure.
And let me chime in here, because a lot of times, like, I homeschool my child because I sent him off to school and they were pumping him full of sugar. And then I was getting an email from the teacher saying he has too much energy. And I was like, oh, I see where you're going with this. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of been this runaway train, and some of it is like, how do we go backwards in time now and rewrite the history that half the country believes and tell them, no, some of these kids actually don't have ADHD. Like, you just need to remove these dyes, remove the grains, remove the dairy, whatever it is, the thing that child is reacting to. Maybe it's the fluorescent lights, maybe it's Wi-Fi. We have to pick apart that whole toxic soup.
It's such a great point.
Yeah,
because I can't even be sure that I can trust the diagnosis I received. Right? Like, I exhibit symptoms that align with those things, but it's entirely possible that those are environmental toxins that if I remove and address, that those symptoms might go away.
Right. And, so we're talking about that on an individual level. And I think that's good for awareness, but then we have to merge this conversation on a political basis into a new arena where people who don't have a stake in it, who don't have any of these symptoms, who have never experienced it themselves, never raised a kid like that. Maybe they have like a distant cousin that has autism, but they've never been really up close with it to understand it. We need to start showing them kind of the truthful and sometimes uglier side of what that looks like. And it's not, to gain sympathy or to help them be more empathic or empathetic about what another family is going through. It's the drum I've been banging for years is this is going to come for you too. You may not end up with autism, but you're going to live in the world that's drowning in it. And if we don't address the economic and systemic effects of that before we get to the point where everybody's saying, holy shit, what just happened, we're going to be in very big trouble.
Totally, right? Like it starts out as a health thing. If it keeps going, it's an economic thing. If it keeps going, it's a national security thing.
Right.
Like it just scales up.
And it's an education thing. I didn't know, Danielle, that you were a homeschool mom, but I am too. And my child has a lot of energy and he loves to deep dive the same way his mother does. He loves to deep dive on topics, and I love to give him the freedom to do so. But when we look at our current educational system as well, a lot of people aren't strong enough to quote unquote fight the system or make the sacrifices it takes to, and it's okay. But to, they put their kids in public school, and then the kids are exposed to an artificial environment in which they are forced to thrive in that it might not be as beneficial to them. So to think about a few years from now where we have this, 1 in 20 boys with autism and what the world is going to look like, we should get ahead of it and make sure there's space for them to.
I mean, the ship has sailed for getting ahead of it. It's that we need to catch up with it and fast.
We do. Yeah, we need to catch up, and we need to, emphasize it. I tell people all the time, you want an interesting social experiment? Go Google the speech therapist or like occupational therapy business in your town and show up at it. You're going to pick your job off the floor as to how busy it is, that it's always that way, that it's booked solid. You can't get in for months. We can't produce enough people who service these kids fast enough to service at the rate that we are producing autistic kids. Wow. So what does that look like when they're older and their parents and their caregivers age out? What kind of world are we living in? And it's kind of like what would happen right now if you just took away all of the independent living facilities in 55 plus communities that people are living in and made them go fend for themselves.
Right.
That's what we're going to be facing. We're going to be facing like not having capacity for all of these disabled people who need someone to come help make sure they pay their bills. Someone, I don't think people understand, especially because a lot of us grew up in an era where some of these kids, we just called them like developmentally challenged, right?
Right.
And they thought like, oh, it's a bunch of learning disorders or something. It is a bunch of learning disorders in some ways, but that's also because some things just, no matter how many times they learn it, will not be retained. So if you have an adult male on the spectrum and say his water heater broke, he's going to just leave it there. There's a very good chance that that person will not know what to do, may not even understand that something has to be done. They can observe that the basement is flooded. They can even observe that the water is not getting hot in the kitchen. But as far as effectively knowing who to call, what the next steps are, and having any sort of internal system that instigates him to fix it, that may not happen. So if you went through your whole day just thinking of everything you come upon and how you instinctively know how to fix a problem when it comes up, or even how to prevent a problem from occurring, if somebody took all of that knowledge and that roadmap in your mind away from you, where would you be? And we're looking at living in a world where a third of the population at least behaves that way.
Totally. And look, this easily deserves its own space, maybe even many spaces. And I think it'll continue being in the news as Bobby is thankfully finally doing the work. So I appreciate the update. It's so important.
Great segue. It's a great segue in a way.
It is.
Because some people that are genetically predispositioned to ADHD, that are slightly on the spectrum, that are so on and so forth, all of us are kind of teetering on the fence, guys. But it's the plasticizers, the the BPAs, the fragrances that are also phthalates. It's a lot of the food dyes. It's a lot.
Totally right. Like when Bobby says it may be things like mold and environmental toxins.
It makes all the difference. Like I just started taking magnesium and my anxiety was solved. You know what I mean? So it is a great segue and it's super powerful because especially if we have now a susceptible population, a population of people that are dealing with a toxic soup, there's a lot of life hacks. There's a lot of little things that we can do that make us feel good, that give us some progress on the matter that we can do. And actually, Danielle, what are some things that you removed from your home first?
Oh my gosh. Well, vaccines. Okay, what did I remove from my home first? This is a long time ago, but we definitely went down the, back in the day, people were still doing like GAPS protocols and Dan's diets and anti-inflammatory diets, anti-candida, like we did them all. Anti-candida was the most severe diet ever that I was like, this is god awful because you literally have to like make you can't, there's not even a salad dressing out there you could ever buy. So I think a lot of focus was on the food avenue before I segued into like laundry detergent and, clean products to clean your home with, paying attention to like brominated fire retardants and other like PFAS and other chemicals that are in children's sleepwear. They're in their bedding. It's on all of the mattresses. It's on your sofa. It's in your rugs. Like it's super crazy where all of that stuff is lurking.
Yeah, and the trick is to not get overwhelmed, right?
Right.
Like when you start going through this list and you realize, holy shit, it's literally everything in my house. And if I haven't become aware of this stuff and haven't started making moves, then it can easily turn into like a fear state. And that's not the purpose of this conversation. Right. And that's not the purpose of this conversation at all.
Understand
but you can just,
my list is, going back 20 years. So it's been a process. And I think that's all it can ever be. I don't know anybody that has like 100% clean, perfect everything. But it's just striving to eliminate what you can because like Kristina said, it's the toxic soup. So the problem isn't that this one thing is causing your issues. It's that there are too many toxic things around you and it's tipping the scales of the threshold of what your body can handle. So you need to take some of it away wherever you can.
Yeah, and thankfully, like some of this stuff, you can make strides without going full Amish or whatever, just by buying a different alternative product at the grocery store, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're using regular ass Tide for your laundry soap, and you switch it up to something that's no chemicals, no dyes, no fragrances. Something as simple as that is a move in the right direction, even if it's not a move from like F- to a A+, which is fine. It's just what can you do simply.
Perfect segue. Perfect segue to
there you go.
My number one superhero is coconut oil, because I started on the cosmetic journey kind of first. I realized that my skin was an organ that eats, that absorbs. And actually, I was having my son. And my buddy told me, he's like, yo, I used to date this girl that had twins, and she used coconut oil in her bath water, in her bathtub, and she never had stretch marks. So I was like, ooh, okay. but it was great because in conjunction with that, when I learned about dimethicone, I got overwhelmed. All my shampoo was junk. All my soap was junk. Everything, it was junk. But then I use coconut oil in bath water. I use it as a lotion, and I do cold pressed organic coconut oil. And this is very important.
Right. The key is unrefined.
Unrefined, cold pressed. They will use an extraction element called hexane in an industrial process. And if you use a hexane processed coconut oil on your skin, you will get more dried out. So your quality of product is absolutely imperative.
That's interesting because hexane is also mentioned a lot as being problematic for things like soy-based proteins and things like that. Because they use hexane to separate the protein from the rest of the plant.
Yeah, 100%. It's an incomplete ester chain, essentially. So it makes sense that it dries you out a little bit because it's a catalyst, you know. And do we want cheap manufacturing processes in our home, or do we want, you know, just squeeze the oil out of the nut, guys? Just squeeze the nut.
Yeah, it's like an expeller press, basically, right?
Yeah, and you know, you'll notice this on olive oil as well and whatnot, and it sucks that you have to kind of be aware of manufacturing processes when you're looking at products. But to give you a Aldi's is a great resource because there are a lot of cheap products that are organic, that are expeller pressed. I usually go to Aldi's first, and I'll get anything that I can find organic, and then I'll go to the more expensive Wegmans or Sprouts.
Oh, hey, there's an Aldi's 3 miles away from me. Yeah. I should start checking that out.
Yeah, and another healthy home hack that leads me into is plastic, and we'll deep dive on this. But plastic is toxic. It's a hormone disruptor. It's an obesogen. It has been said that your body will actually create fat cells to store these toxic byproducts that are in our products because your body's like, I don't know what to do with this, so let me just store it in a fat cell. So we used to do this cleanse, and a lot of people would try to shed weight, but they couldn't because their body was setting it aside because it didn't know how to handle this byproduct of either petroleum or whatever else they try to sneak in our formulas. So really, I mean, look at it like you're a caveman. Like, what did your body use 1,000,000 years ago? We had coconuts around us 100,000 years ago, 200. We can argue that, but you know, like back in the day, we relied on these naturally these natural compounds, and they're cold pressed as opposed to these crazy industrial practices. So yeah, coconut oil is great. It's a really great way to knock out any of the lotions that you're going to buy anywhere, and especially overpriced. I mean, honestly, something like a natural oil can really revitalize your skin. So I would start with that. But there's a thing here where a lot of people don't know how to store things properly. If you store an oil product in plastic, it will actually start to dissolve some of those plasticizers into the product. So I'm going to recommend glass. We're going to have some fun ways to do it with like glass Tupperware. But it's important that you know the villains in your life. Like, you can use plastic, but if you use plastic under the auspices of heat, sunshine, or oil, you're going to create an environment where more of those plastics are being absorbed and diffused. Those biphenyls, etc., are being diffused into what you're consuming. If you can switch to glass, do it. But if you're going to use plastic, again, we can't throw all of the plastic out at once, but do not microwave it.
Right. Don't microwave it. Don't transfer hot food directly into your plastic storage containers, that sort of thing, right?
And the cheat sheet, again, for what you're going to do to make plastic toxic in your home is heat, sun, and oil. And then acidity, like tomato. Don't ever put hot spaghetti into a Tupperware, guys. Like now you're just asking for it, you know?
Now, when you say oil, do you mean fats in general? And like the image that came to my mind is like macaroni and cheese, right? The cheese, it's fatty. Does that count as oil?
You know, if you gotta put like some cold mac and cheese in plastic Tupperware, you're already eating mac and cheese. You know, maybe if it's organic anise or whatever, you know, like you're already dancing on the edge. But I think
well, but again, this conversation is about the little things we can do and
Yeah.
dialing it up
No,
on,
you're
you know, because there's so many fronts to address.
You're
right?
100% right. I think like cold mac and cheese in a plastic Tupperware like might kind of be acceptable when you have to cheat if you want to go like next level. The reason I love the hack about glass Tupperware is it's kind of like the lazy gardener theme, and it's kind of like the lazy cook, because I don't like washing dishes. I don't think anybody else does. But if you start to if you buy a package of glass Tupperware that's actual pyrex, you can use it in the oven. So you can kind of cook and prepare your platter in the oven in this Tupperware. And then your family scoops it out and there's naturally leftovers. Well, guess what? You're not now transferring this into a new container, into plastic, and putting it in your fridge and maybe eating it or not. But you're just taking the same cookware and you're slapping the lid on it and you're throwing it in the fridge. I'm a busy mom. I do not have time to reinvent the wheel as I'm trying to make my family healthy again. I need time conservation tips, and glass Tupperware has been one of the best things that I've relied on. You need to look for pyrex that is in all capital letters. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody tried to buy it out recently. But I believe it's the pyrex that's in all capital letters. You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, they're actually different types of glass. The pyrex in all caps versus the one that I think it's just a capital P. It's technically a different type of glass, and one of them is more heat resistant, and the other is more shatter resistant.
Yeah, we'll get a material scientist in this space at sometimes, because I really do want to deep dive on can glass be toxic? Because there used to be this ancient glass, not ancient, but back in the day it would be blue glass, and it was actually leaded, you know. So glass is a
and there's that green uranium glass too that some people collect these days.
Yeah, there it is. It was produced where I'm from, but you know, so even glass isn't always perfect. But you know, guys, start small.
Better than plastic.
Better
than plastic. Yeah. And it's like when you said about like cooking in the pyrex glass cookware and then transferring that right into the fridge for storage. I also really like the smaller glass containers, because I'll just use that as a bowl. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, and I love buying from Aldi's because I'll buy products in glass and I'll reuse their mason jars, and so it's great. But yeah, Danielle, chime in.
Sorry, guys, I was just saying I have a meeting to be on, so I have to jump. But thank you for having me in here today to jam out with you over all of this.
We always appreciate you. Everyone shoot Council on Domestic Relations a follow. They're doing really important work.
Yeah, we'll follow you back.
Yep, they've been so great at helping us with content and guests, and on the back end, they're doing just amazing work stitching together the MAHA coalition and the grassroots and tracking initiatives. A lot of our action items come straight from those guys. It's really cool to see, and I'm super grateful for them. Good. So thanks, Danielle. We'll see you Monday.
Yes, see you guys.
Tucker, what's up, buddy?
I had a small segue into gardening as well. If you have any organic gardening at home, small setups, a lot of people like to do these little raised garden beds, stuff like that. Stay away from plastic. You don't want plastic anywhere near your soil. You don't want.
Oh, you mean like the plastic liners some people use underneath their soil?
Exactly.
I got you.
Stay away from any form of plastic in your home garden, because you will be eating that microplastic, breaking down into your soil, being absorbed by your plant. You're going to get all that bad chemical. And I had to learn that over the years, kind of the hard way. And I've had to do a lot of work removing removing microplastic from my garden. So,
man, it's a great call. What do you use instead?
A lot of cardboard.
Gotcha. That's what I thought you might say. But like plain cardboard, not like the glossy box you got your coffee pot in or whatever.
It's all such a rabbit hole. Like,
yeah, right. But just like plain brown cardboard.
Yes, plain brown cardboard is your best friend. Use that to cover the ground up. Don't ever use plastic. Keep it away from your garden. Keep it out of your compost pile. All that good stuff.
Nice one, man. Thanks. That's
There's
really
a great
cool.
topical garden called a lasagna garden setup where you actually pile up on top of the ground as well. So you don't always have to like stress yourself out and build a box, guys. Like you can literally just have like a pile of straw and dirt layered on top of itself and just throw some seeds in there. Like nature's been taking care of itself for years. The fact that we are humans and we want to put it in a square box is actually kind of funny sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Why are we creating all this extra work for ourselves? It's so silly, right?
Yeah, I actually use the lasagna method on a few of my little beds. It works very good, and you're correct. Nature already does all the work for you. You can have natural weed barriers. Just do a little bit of research.
Nice one, man. That's a good one. I appreciate it. All right, Kristina, what else you got? Hey, by the way, everybody, if you've got your own tips, your own thoughts or questions, post them in the purple pill, grab a mic. We'd love you up here hanging out with us. Join the conversation. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, 100%. We're just having fun here because it can, again, this rabbit hole gets so daunting. If you fill yourself up with fear, like that's not a successful course to take. You just, you have to have fun with it. I mean, we can even go into fun with essential oils. I promise I'm not a pure, I don't have anything to shill here or whatever. But
you don't have a doTERRA affiliate link?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish I did. No, I went on Amazon and there's this like 18 set that's organic that I think I actually might buy because then I can start to experiment with my glass spray bottle and whatever else. But that brings me to like, let's talk cleaning. I'm a homeschool mom and I love experiments. I love the combination of baking soda and vinegar because if you've ever like been bored and then you've got to like clean the shower, like I'll sprinkle all the baking soda in there and then I add the vinegar and it all bubbles up and I scrub and it gets to become a lesson for my son as well. But it's funny because there's things that we have access to like baking soda, vinegar, even borax, that would completely wipe out the entire cleaning industry, or citrus oil, or all these oils that we know are antimicrobial and they smell wonderful. What we have is this, it's not the military industrial complex. What would we call this? Because
chemical industrial complex?
Yeah, the chemical industrial.
Talking about like Dow and DuPont and all these companies that sort of came in and they had a vested interest in replacing these natural items that we use with whatever they got cooking up in the lab.
Exactly. And it takes us away from, we have these really basic, cheap elements that we can add to our home that not only clean our homes, but they don't add a bunch of the fragrance. Anytime you see fragrance, and it's not in quotation marks, but it should be, but that is a phthalate. A phthalate is a plastic. These can be, these can go into your air. These can absorb into your surfaces. But fragrance is, it's not an essential oil, guys.
Well, and they're endocrine disruptors, right?
Yes, they're.
And you find them in cleaning products, but you also find them in body care products, which means you're literally slathering it into your skin, which absorbs everything.
So the chemical industrial complex is encouraging to use these phthalates as a dryer sheet. So you're essentially baking all of your laundry in a bunch of phthalates, which means an extrapolated petroleum product. A lot of times people will manufacture things and they'll have a lot of leftover chemicals and they're like, what do we do with it? And they just sneak it into our food. They sneak it into our home healthcare products. And it's instead of putting it in a toxic waste dump, kind of where it belongs, or
Well, that's the case for fluoride, I believe, too, right? That the fluoride they put in the municipal drinking water is a byproduct of, I think, like aluminum manufacturing or something like that.
And Billy's about to jump out of his PFP over there. Go ahead, Billy. Good to see you, man.
Hey, what's up? Sorry, I know Danielle and I have been like jumping from call to call, so I know she took a little bit. I wanted to jump in. I know
Appreciate it.
I just heard you say essential oils, and I wanted to tell a quick story about that, and then I'll get to the autism thing that she was talking about and give my 13 cents today. So I grew up with allergies in my family, and specifically with me my entire life from early on. So I was on a lot of antibiotics my entire life, once or twice a year, because I got such severe sinus infections. When I moved to California in 2012, about there, I was just having enough and I didn't want to take any more antibiotics, and found a hippie blog, and they outlined taking essential oil of peppermint and lemon and boiling water and taking a couple drops of essential oil and dropping it into a cup and then breathing the steam in. And I was like, man, this is some hokey shit. What's going on here? So this was the very beginning of my turning around. I was like, all right, I'm going to order these essential oils. I order these oils. My wife's like, can you get these oils out of the room? This is ridiculous. What's going on here? Long story short, I've not had antibiotics for a sinus infection since. It completely blew me away. So just by simply boiling water and having a couple drops of essential oil and lemon, I also now use honey in that, and then I drink it after because I now understand the effects of it. The FDA won't approve or license the consumption of essential oils, even though it's just, heat processing or cold processing the oil out of a plant and then coming up with the oil and then consuming it. They say there's all kinds of issues with that. So, but if you take a look at essential oil of lemon and what it does to a stomach virus, my kids don't get sick. In fact, there's videos of my kid when they were 2 and 3 years old. They would wake up and they'd have a stuffy nose, and they would literally want to breathe in the steam. So I'd prepare the steam and we'd breathe it in and it goes away. So basically what's happening is that essential oil, what antifungal, antivirus, goes into your nose and kills that bacteria that's in there. So after that, I just did my whole deep dive into essential oil. And I mean, I had multiple business ideas for essential oils over the years. You can imagine, as a serial entrepreneur, it's just, I had multiple business names and started some processes. I was making my own oil mixes. I use tea tree oil heavily in this house. We don't even buy it by the ounce anymore so it's expensive. I go to bulk apothecary and I order 16 ounces of organic tea tree. Tea tree oil.
Yeah, tea tree oil is tea tree. I love that.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, we use tea tree oil for quite a few things. It's, if I get an infection in the back of my mouth, I dab a Q-tip, and then, if I have a sore throat or a postnasal drip infection, one dab of tea tree oil in the back, or in my ear when I get an ear infection, like one dab, like one drop on the Q-tip in my ear, 24 hours later, it's gone. It's awesome. It's absolutely fascinating.
I thought all this stuff was like foo-foo stuff until I found myself on a regenerative chicken farm, and a lot of my chickens were getting sick, and I Googled coconut oil, and all chickens get something like a chest cold. It's called coccidiosis. It's an overgrowth of a coccidae, oops, too many times I've said that word, bacteria. But no, I'm serious. I brought 8 out of 10 chickens back from their deathbed simply with organic coconut oil. And then I went into oregano oil as well. And I would literally either be losing chickens or chickens would survive. Once I saw that power, I was like, wow, all the frou-frou is gone. Like this works. You know what I mean? It was right in my face. Yeah, so the oregano oil was great for the chickens. And like you're saying at home, your body craves things that are healthy and what it needs. I think that's so cool that your kids locked in and they were like, we want the natural essential oil mist. That's so cool.
Yeah, I have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and collectively that's what, 45 some years of life, and they all collectively have probably been on antibiotics at the max 3 total. Like, so wow. Average of 1 each. in their lives, they don't get ear infections, they don't get sick. If they get sick, they kind of get over it relatively naturally over a short period of time. So yeah, there's a lot you can do that doesn't require you to go get some antibiotic. And the antibiotic has its own negative effects. That's pretty fascinating. The latest research coming out about what antibiotics and even ibuprofen do to your gut, do to your mental health. It's pretty fascinating.
So, for sure. Yeah. And I used to get an antibiotic cycle pretty much every year when I was a kid. I used to get bronchitis like every single year. And I don't know if that had to do with vaccines or environmental toxins or stress in the household. I mean, who knows? But I was a little bit of a sickly kid. Every year up until I was about 14 or 15, bronchitis, antibiotics. Ironically, and obviously this is super anecdotal, I stopped getting bronchitis every year the year I picked up weed. And I don't know, but it always was interesting to me because I always expected it every year at a certain point. And then I started smoking weed with my idiot buddies in high school, and I didn't get bronchitis.
Well, there are tobacco nicotine receptors. There are
endocannabinoid system.
But what it really, guys, it's in your gut, like quite literally, like your body knows what it needs. It might falsely want sugar because the bacteria actually tap into your vagus nerve and demand like more sugar. It's crazy if you haven't gone on that rabbit hole. But if you trust your systems, like, you have so much power. You have so much power, and it's simple and it's cheap. And that's something that I haven't been able to touch on with the space yet. But like a lot of these life hacks are cost-saving affairs. If you're spending money on coconut oil instead of a bunch of like crazy toxic lotions that are running ads on Instagram and everything else, like, you're saving money and you're saving your body from all of these foreign particles that we were never exposed to way back in the day.
Right. And you can use a bunch of these things in a bunch of different ways, as we've started touching on a little bit here, like combining some vinegar and some essential oils in some water with what? There might be another thing or two you can throw in there, put it in a spray bottle, and you have a surface cleaner. And you don't need 5 different products for that, because you probably already had those things in a gallon jug, and like, you've already got it. You just need to know how to put it together.
Yeah, baking soda, especially. And here's the thing: you have to know your source. Know your source. Know your source. Baking soda can be gotten from a manufacturing process, or there's literally like some mine somewhere in the world where there's like native baking soda.
Sodium bicarbonate, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and the thing to look for with baking soda, and Kristina, you might know some specific household uses for it, but when you're looking for baking soda, you're looking for aluminum-free baking soda. I think Bob's Red Mill sells an aluminum-free baking soda. There's probably a couple of other good brands, because if you just go in and grab the store brand or whatever, chances are it's going to have that aluminum, which might not be a problem, I don't know, for doing things like cleaning, but you might not want to consume that.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff is overwhelming. Damo and I have chatted in the back channels, and I'm sure we'll continue this, but I think we're going to put together kind of a shopping guide for everybody where it organically fits into your Amazon shopping cart, to where you can kind of explore these things. And we might even do a deep dive of like how you can read the labels to kind of know, but it has to be a cheat sheet, because I mean, it gets really complex. But I always resort to, would a caveman have been exposed to this? That's kind of my overall cheat sheet for,
which is a bit of a paleo concept, not to like try to put it in a box.
No, it really is a paleo concept. It's looking at how our bodies have evolved to deal with natural elements around us. And over so many years of evolution, it just makes sense that we would have more of a propensity to benefit off of organic compounds that we have been exposed to throughout time, rather than co-products of manufacturing processes.
Yeah, and this really fits into the tips I've heard so far. Like, get rid of the plastic containers if you can and replace it with Pyrex. If you can't do that, then be cautious about how you're using those plastic containers, because in certain conditions it'll leach, and that's the big problem with them. It has to do with looking for simple body care and cleaning solutions that don't include all these crazy ingredients that are really only been around for like 100 years, and they've been pressed upon us because of economic interests over anything to do with our well-being. Yeah, coconut oil, like, been around for so long. Obviously, if your culture didn't come from the tropics, you probably didn't have a lot of exposure to it. But we've got global supply chains now, so you can get coconut oil, and it's good for body care. It's good for your gut. It's good for all sorts of things, and replaces a lot of other things we're using supposedly to fill those same needs.
And I hate to do this, but go ahead, Billy. Go ahead, Billy.
It's Awake, actually, that's got his hand up.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Thanks for the mic, man. I appreciate it. I don't always get to catch these spaces, but I love them when I have the ability, right?
I appreciate it, man.
The home hack, I wanted to throw mine out. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we got rid of all of our dishwashing, Procter & Gamble stuff. We got rid of all of our clothes, washing chemicals, and we now use what's called washing powder or washing soda, and it is brilliant, man. It's brilliant, and it's dirt cheap. It's a couple of clicks off from the baking soda. It's I guess it's technically like sodium carbonate, and it is wonderful, man. It's super cheap, available everywhere, and you know, no smell to the clothes, no film on the dishes and the dishwasher. Brilliant stuff, man.
Cool. Do you have a brand you run with?
Yeah, hold on a second here. Let me see. We get it in like 10 pounds at a time.
Yeah, note to everybody, if you've got some kind of product that you've been using that replaces other toxic things, please post it in the comments below. I'm going to build an article. I'm going to deep dive on this more, create a resource, add value for you guys to just brain free, be able to like purchase things that, you know, have kind of been vetted, you know?
Totally, right. Because it's one thing for us to give these general thoughts on things you can replace, but that's really not enough. People don't have the bandwidth to be like, okay, they've said this, now let me go do research. We're saying this because we really want to offer the context. So we're not just saying, hey, don't use that thing, use this thing. That feels more like an advertisement, but like, it's MAHA. We want to understand better. And folks that are participating in these conversations, it's good to be able to talk about the why, but we do need to get a little better at offering the what as simple alternatives. Yeah, Wake.
Yeah, no, it's a Canadian brand called Nellie's Laundry Soda. And we get 13 and a half pounds at a time, and it just lasts us for months and months. I can't tell you, it's made a big difference. I don't know about you guys, but I've become, over the last few years, I've become incredibly sensitive to smells, and especially anything that has to do with laundry. You know, I'll go for walks in the neighborhood, and you know, if I do like a 3 or 4 mile walk, inevitably I will walk past a house that's using some kind of fabric softener or a dryer sheet, and man, the smell of those things, I've become so sensitive to them. It's like a 700-pound teddy bear. It just smells disgusting.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I'm glad I'm not a mall kid anymore, because walking through the department store, like the fragrance section, it just feels like an assault. Thankfully,
it's like an instant headache.
Yeah. Thankfully, that's gotten a lot less common. But when you're in enclosed spaces and sort of like corporate environments, there's almost inevitably someone who's still blasting it. Uber drivers that are blasting cologne and stuff like that. It's interesting you mentioned Nellie's. About a year or so ago, I remember reading an article that was citing a study suggesting that a lot of dishwashing detergent has like a pre-wash, or there's something in a lot of dishwashing detergents that is potentially linked to cancer. And obviously it was just one study, and who knows what's what with it, but I tend to try to pick up on this stuff early, because why wait? And I did some research, and I got my housemate who was also the landlord, she was the homeowner, to switch. And we found Nellie's, and we had been using Nellie's for quite a while until I moved out of that house. So I hadn't played with their laundry soap yet, but their dish detergent is great. And it's similar. It's just a powder, one scoop.
Guys, we need this from each other. Like, use the X community that we've established, the MAHA community. Also,
yep, and that's up in the nest.
MAHA. But I mean, really share these things, because as you guys all know, once again you find out about one chemical, it becomes overwhelming, and we're already so overwhelmed. So if we can just kind of like trust each other and been like, oh my gosh, I love these Myers lavender dryer sheets instead of...
No, not Myers.
Oh, are you serious? Are you about to burst my bubble right now? I thought it was just lavender essential oil. I thought
it might be. I don't know anything about their dryer sheet product, but so I worked for Dr. Bronner's for a bunch of years. And I love that company. They're awesome. And one of the folks that worked for the corporate team used to work for Myers. And I sort of asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, they really disappointed me. And I think it was in part because because it's one of those companies. It's one of those companies that brands themselves really well. They look so on point, but they don't really have it down as far as the ingredient quality, the ingredient mix. If you turn that thing around and look at the ingredients label, which you should always do, not just on food, but cleaning and body care, you'll find that it's not anywhere near as pristine as, for instance, a Dr. Bronner's. And Dr. Bronner's, their product lines aren't nearly as extensive as Myers. And in fact, that's usually a hint that a company is not as pristine as you might want for your home, is if they sell a million different products. Because it often means that they took like private equity or venture capital to expand their product lines. And then the influence of that private equity or venture capital often is, if you want to do this, you're going to have to reduce your input costs and do this, that, and the other thing. But in exchange, we'll give you a bunch of money and maybe even help you with your distribution channels. So yeah, I can't speak specifically to it. So someone please like clap back here if I'm wrong, but I don't think Myers is as good as we wish it was.
I mean, I'm just going to clap back on like basic. Why don't I just take a vintage cotton washcloth or something, I got from Salvation Army that's cotton and has been washed 100 times, and add some essential oils to it. I mean, maybe it's not that basic, but maybe it is that basic. I've really been moving away from my plastic yoga pants that squeeze me in all the wrong directions. I've been moving to cotton products. I've just been going to, and I mean, I love it. I'm a thrift shopper. I'm a window shopper, but getting even just replacing your bottom layer of clothing with cotton is going to help so many women, especially like premenopausal or going into menopausal women. If you keep natural fibers up against your body, you're going to notice a dramatic reduction in like night sweats or hot flashes.
Yeah, this has been a big thing lately, is get rid of your polyester clothes, get rid of the plastic clothes. Natural fibers are where it's at. And hopefully that picks up enough that a lot of the more sort of fashionable brands do it. Because I totally understand when it comes to clothing, a lot of the benefit is being able to sort of create your own image. And so I wouldn't want to tell people to like replace all the clothes they love and look frumpy and drab. That's really not the point. But when we're talking about things like ingredients in our food and our body care and cleaning products and these things that leach into our body, there's nothing closer to your body than what you're wearing. So it is a factor and something that's worth considering.
I'm pushing for nudity. You should all just be nude.
Let's go.
No clothes, baby.
Yeah, but probably mostly south of the Mason-Dixon line, right? It gets cold up here, bro.
You're pointing at me.
I am. Wool is so great.
Yeah, I see Yvonne's got her hand up. Hey, Yvonne, how you doing?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, Myers. My dad brought me up to look out for all kinds of chemicals. So my entire life, and I'm already in my 6th decade. Yeah, so my whole life I've just been looking for healthier and healthier products, but I smelled Myers, which, you know, the packaging, everything looked real good, but something smelled fishy to me. So if you look on the back, it says fragrance, and that could mean phthalates. It's just, yeah, I know.
My heart. I tried so
I
hard
know.
to be healthy, Yvonne. I tried so hard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like this cuts both ways, right? One, it can feel really overwhelming. I thought I was already buying a good brand and that sort of stuff. But also, it's a nice example of even us hosting the show. We're not perfect. We're still learning. We're still exploring. So this isn't like a don't look at us as these pristine experts and how could we ever reach where they're at. Trust me, I am far, far, far from perfect. So this is a shared journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the one thing I don't think we've talked about yet is sunscreen. So all these chemical sunscreens, you put them on your skin and then you go bake out in the sun. And the research shows that if you get a bad burn, okay, you damage your skin, that cancer that might come from that is very treatable. The cancers that come from the sunscreen chemicals are the ones that are more dangerous and fatal. So if you want, if it's hard to give up your sunscreen, so you can try a mineral sunscreen like zinc oxide, titanium dioxide. People have their choices, but you could also use certain oils that they're great for sun protection. Or
is coconut oil one that's good for that?
I'm not the smell of coconut oil. So I don't know as much about it, but
hemp
it may be.
Hemp fabric locks out the UVB. So if we can start sourcing more hemp material.
Okay, well let me finish, because the thing is, the research on circadian rhythm shows that we need every spectrum of light throughout the day, including UVB and UVA. They actually activate processes in our bodies that help us to sleep at night, to make energy, to do all these things. So I've gotten to the point where I just don't even use sunscreen anymore. I'd rather let my body get the light and make sure that I get a little bit of light throughout the day. Because, the research is really showing that we've been told how dangerous the sun is, but really look at plants. Look at our mitochondria and how it functions. So anyway, I just wanted to add that about sunscreen.
You're so right, Yvonne. It's not the sun that is entirely dangerous. I grew up slathering baby oil on my skin and laying out on the trampoline with my mom and my grandma. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that the sun is so dangerous, but when we combine it with these heavier metals that are found in the sunscreens and everything else, I have never put sunscreen on my child, and I never will. I think it's a form of child abuse. Other than, like you said, maybe the zinc oxide or just a heavier t-shirt, a hat, What happened to a hat and a long sleeve tee?
Right, toss a wide brim hat, like the full circle, like the safari hat or whatever. I've got a couple of those that are great for sun protection. I generally don't use sunscreen either, but when I do, I usually go for Badger. The reason a lot of people don't use zinc sunscreens is it's white. Like you'll rub it into your skin and it'll stay white, like obnoxiously, obviously white. But they have this like clear zinc now, and you'll notice a bit of a film still, and it might be ever so slightly white, but it's nowhere near as bad as what they used to be. So you can totally find these, and they're pretty great. And they work well. They are a little more expensive, and sometimes when we're talking about this stuff, the alternative goods are a little more expensive, but it's like, okay, it's that or endocrine disruption and cancer later in life, and like really what's more expensive, right?
And also, as far as sunglasses, your eyes, we have cones and rods in our eyes. Those are our light receptors. So sunglasses, my friends, they just wear sunglasses all the time. Glass will keep that valuable light from getting into your system. And so take your glasses or your sunglasses off and make sure you don't look directly in the sun, but let your eyes get some light. It's healing macular degeneration in some people. It's helping to reverse it. So those are just little things I wanted to add. Thanks.
That's really good. Like sunglasses, of course, we often like to wear them because they're so stylish. I love the look of a good pair of sunglasses, but every time I put them on, it just feels weird. I hate making the things I'm looking at darker than they naturally are. For some reason, it's just weird to me.
We're kind of all over the place, but what the common denominator is that hospitals used to have a sunning deck where they would put people out in the sun to get rid of diseases. Elon says sunlight is the best disinfectant. Obviously, he extrapolates and uses that.
It's a metaphor, but yeah.
the common core is there's a lot of things, again, that our body has been raised to deal with that are natural, that come from the earth. And if you can not get overwhelmed by all these weird tertiary toxic chemicals and manufacturing processes, but really just look at yourself as part of the earth. I mean, you're a product of evolution over time, and try to get back to things that are more natural. Even I was deceived with the Myers brand, you know what I mean? So look at things that grow from the earth that you can use, that feel great, smell great in your home, and have fun with it. And one of the big offenders is, in this space, we really wanted to focus on the big offenders. So many of us are using paraffin wax candles. People give them to us for gifts. They're terrible. But we have this alternative beeswax, and we have soy candles. Look at the biggest offenders, the biggest chemicals that are finding their ways into your lives, and just have fun with it. Find something you love more, like lavender essential oil or peppermint essential oil. Don't get overwhelmed, but have fun like it's a treasure hunt to instead of using a lotion, find something that you would eat. And remember that your skin is an organ that eats. Just start kind of thinking like this is a design practicum, is a design methodology to look to nature, to what your body has worked with for years that hasn't offended it or caused allergic reactions or caused this toxic soup overload. And corporations don't want you to talk about this because it does cut into so many of their profit margins and their patents and so on and so forth. But get back to nature is really the theme with any home hack here entirely.
Yeah, and when you talk about the corporate profit thing, a couple of weeks ago when we were especially closely paying attention to the Monsanto Protection Acts going on around the country, one of the things that blew my mind so much was the fact that Monsanto was bought out by Bayer. Monsanto makes glyphosate. Glyphosate is linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Bayer makes a treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So when you talk about these corporate profits, if you zoom out a little bit and recognize that a lot of the largest financial entities in the world own the biggest companies across industries, there might be interests here where they want us buying these chemicals and putting them in our homes and putting them in our bodies because other portfolio companies then have products to deal with the second order consequences of us doing so. And that's a little tinfoily, but whether it's intentional or just sort of like a happy accident from their perspective, it's not okay, right? They're profiting every which way on us being sick. And I think that's worth remembering, especially when we're deciding what companies to give our money to. It's one thing for the product to actually be unhealthy, but to recognize that they might know this, and in a lot of cases they just absolutely know, should piss us off and make us really determined not to give them our money.
And very enthused to hold them accountable. And yes, and we must all hold them accountable, because that's a lot of the thing with labeling laws and rules and policy, and the EPA calling glyphosate, carcinogenic or not, when it obviously is, and there's all these court cases against us. But yeah, I don't know. I just really feel like that kind of, I don't want to call it ancient knowledge because it sounds too like frou-frou, but in an era where we are all so disconnected and we have so many
heritage wisdom.
heritage wisdom.
Heritage is an American word, right?
Yeah,
we love our heritage.
Oh my gosh, it's our favorite rancher, John. What's going on, man?
Oh man, careful. We got a lot of favorite ranchers, but we love John. Hey man.
Oh yeah, yep.
Hey guys, y'all were talking about sunscreen, and there's a brothers. I think it's Chris and David Botcher, and you can look them up. They're on X, and they had their health nuts. They talk about all kinds of healthy things, almost like y'all. But they were talking about not using sunscreen and how to train your body to get to the point to where you can stay out in sun for all day and not have any issues. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
That's all right.
That's just something that I wanted to share with y'all. I didn't know if y'all had ever heard of them or not.
I haven't heard of them, but I have, I believe, heard even fairly recently about what you're talking about. And I think it was some folks in Hawaii that I heard posting about this, that like when the sunny season comes around again and you've kind of gotten pasty because you're not getting enough sun, you're inside a lot, you have to train your body, and you do that by repeated short-term sun exposure. And a lot of you might be familiar with the term like base tan. It is like give yourself some decent short-term sun exposure, 15 minutes, 30 minutes for like days or even weeks. But once you've done that enough and you've kind of trained your body, you've gotten the UVs in there, you've gotten a little bit of a base tan, according to some folks, and I don't have data to back this up, so don't take it as gospel or anything, but according to some folks, at that point, you can handle much longer sun exposure.
And I would also say, get your kids to the ocean. If you have some clean water around you, again, nature is healing, guys. Dandelions pop up in your yard. Want to know why? You might need some dandelion in your life. And it's just like, if you have an ocean nearby, I don't right now. I'm so sad about it. But anytime I was starting to feel sick or whatever, getting into that salt water and splashing around and getting that sunlight on my skin, it's just, there's so much healing in nature. Like, don't cram your kids in a room and feed them cough syrup. Like, bring them outside. Like, get them hiking, get them in the fresh air. Every old grandma will tell you, like, get out in the fresh air. And it's kind of these simple principles that we've allowed society to stray us away from. But that really is the hack, is to get back in touch with your own natural biorhythms, with nature. Just get out there, touch grass,
Totally. And that can be tricky for us too, right? Because we might live in an urban or even a suburban environment where the air isn't clean. So getting outside and breathing deep on your street might not be the answer. But, if you got a little hiking trail, you got a little forest or public park that's wooded, if you walk into those spaces and you're paying attention, you can really notice the difference in air quality. And the same thing kind of goes for water, right? Because if you've got streams and rivers, it's very possible that water's not clean. If you've got a bay or an ocean, but it's near manufacturing plants, it's very possible that water's not clean. So they have really, and we collectively in our industrialization have made it harder for just going outside to be in and of itself healing. But you're absolutely on point, I think, with a lot of the general principles you're talking about. If we have access within, say, 20 or 30 minutes to a forest or something like that, or a beach in a place where we know the water's fairly clean.
And I think the problem comes when we look at that as a burden. Somebody tells me to go touch grass, and I'm like, no, I have so much computer work to do. I have to prepare for this space and teach everybody how to be healthy. You know what I mean? But it becomes that kind of like overwhelm. But the more, I don't know, the more we do it, the better that we're going to feel. And we have all this false anxiety that's pushed upon us with all these ads, and any female in the room knows you can't go anywhere without pharmaceutical, cosmeceutical.
Never heard that one before.
Yeah, right. I just made that up. But without them trying to like jam products down our throat that like a few wrinkles are bad, or that like, but they're just composed of so much crap. I mean, it's really freaking simple. Try to make your life more efficient by simplifying the products that are in your cleaning cupboards, that are in your bathroom cupboards, that are in your kitchen cupboards. The more that you can simplify it and bring it back to organic compounds that your body are used to, you're not going to get it perfect. You're going to make mistakes along the way. If you're really a heathen, pick a chemical or two that's labeled as a carcinogen in California, start reading labels, and you'll get the shock effect. So it's important to stay positive. Just eliminate, simplify, and replace,
Yeah, I feel like the California cancer label has kind of watered it down to the point that I almost don't even know what's real, because every cannabis product in California has that label on it too.
Ouch.
Yeah, so I'm just like, okay, all right, like, all right, whatever. It's like, I mean, not to make a jarring comparison, but it's kind of like getting on the sex offender registry for peeing in public.
Oh my gosh. But
I know.
again, overstep that, guys. This really is, and it's so great to highlight over and over again how overwhelming it can all be. But like, move to glass. If you can get glass Pyrex, save yourself some dishes. That's amazing. Yeah. I go
try to avoid.
Aldi's.
Yeah, try to avoid canned food often, especially for things like tomatoes, because that acidity interacts with the BPA or BPS or whatever lining they use. And that's tough, right? Because not many brands sell tomatoes preserved that aren't in cans. And here and there it's fine, but if it's a staple of your diet, you're almost better off getting your own tomatoes and throwing them into a slow cooker.
You can go to Aldi's. You can buy their cheap organic pasta. It's in glass mason jars, like legit mason jars. So I don't ever go out and buy empty mason jars. That's like sacrilegious to me. I go to Aldi's. I buy my spaghetti sauce. It's in real mason jars. I clean them. And sometimes I reuse them. I either save seeds with them. I use them as food storage. I use them for all sorts of things, but you'll never buy empty glass mason jars.
Well, you got me on that one. I ended up buying a 12-pack of quart mason jars a few weeks ago, but it's because I'm on the carnivore diet, extremely restrictive. Like I am almost exclusively eating ground beef. And yes, I'm exhausted by it. I'm really actually struggling to continue, even though it's working. But I'm also making homemade bone broth, and we didn't have any containers here in the house I'm living right now, so I had to go and get a 12-pack of mason jars. But I use them for everything now. So even if you have to do that, you use them frequently. William, hey, welcome to the stage. How you doing?
Hey, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm listening to a lot of holistic things, and the only thing I want to teach all of you is that when you go back to, I don't know how much interaction you have with your great grandma or your grandma, but everything used to be canned, okay, and garlic, onion, okay, honey, and lemon, natural cough syrup. Okay, and then we could go into cancer relief, apricot seeds. We could go into dandelion root. I mean, I don't, like I said, I just joined your space, but at the same time, what you guys are saying and what you guys are very passionate about is doing the right thing, and doing the right thing is doing the right thing. So I'm just happy to be here, and I love y'all.
I appreciate that, man. Welcome. We do these spaces, the Midday Maha, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. We're often focusing on sort of like policy questions and some of the really the much bigger Make America Healthy Again topics. But Fridays tend to be a little more relaxed and a little slower. So we're leaning in on Fridays on talking about more like personal choices and healthy options. Last week we were talking about lazy gardening tips and ways you can do things and grow stuff at your home without thinking you need to have a green thumb and stuff like that. But yeah, these spaces are really fun, William. We've got a great community growing here. A lot of the folks here come back again and again, and it's just been really rewarding. We do also have an X community called the Midday MAHA, which we would love for you to join. We just got that going, but we're using it for sharing and getting to know each other a little better, and action items, and we're even starting to do weekly like MAHA challenges where we're getting like the Beef Initiative to sponsor prizes. It's a lot of fun, and this is sort of like that stitching together the grassroots, just real people out there in their lives that care about this stuff. Because it seems like so far that's one of the things that's missing from this MAHA movement is a specific effort to build out the grassroots. I'll let you go ahead and respond, and then we'll get over to Martha.
Well, what you're doing is an amazing thing, and I loved everything that I've heard. And I also want to explain to everybody in your space, and I'm sure all of you guys already know this, but when you actually delve into what you're inputting into your body is what you're going to get out of your body. So therefore, whether it's oil of oregano, or you have hair loss and it's oil of rosemary, or copper deficiency because you have bloodshot eyes. There's a lot of things that when you go back to grandma, and I hate to say this, but when you go back to great grandma and grandma, they've had this, and there was no quote unquote science to back it up, but man, we felt we were just energetic kids. Anyway,
right.
Love you.
Love you too, man. Yeah. We used to call those home remedies, right? And I feel like at a certain point we started to collectively at least treat those as if they were kind of hokey or outdated or obsolete. And the more we learn about the sort of industrial processes that have leached into everything we buy, that, man, we might have really already had it right. Anyway, Martha?
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Sure can. You sound great.
Hi, great. Oh, this is so great. I'm so glad I remembered. I stumbled in here. It's so obvious to me, and I've been on the planet for quite a while. It's so obvious to me that our one and only problem, and I'm talking physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual disconnect problem, is due to the disconnect from Mother Nature, Gaia. That's it. It's not rocket science. The more that we've strayed, when we began to stray with the industrial corporations, and industrial and farming are two words that never belong together, and industrial and food are two words that never belong together. And yes, grandmother, just a few generations ago, we ate food. It was just food. And it was the basics. I remember my grandmother squeezing orange juice, that old, those old fashioned OJ presses.
Totally.
With the crank, you pull it down, squeeze it. Yeah, and people had fresh squeezed OJ every morning. It was just kind of what you did. Everybody did things the old fashioned way. There was no other way. And the minute we started cutting corners and using plastic, God, the movie The Graduate, plastics. That was the beginning of the age of disease,
Yeah, and it's interesting here because you can easily tangent that sentiment into a resentment of all technology, and I don't really go there. Not so far. A thought experiment I often ask people who are like, we just need to get rid of all the technology, is like, well, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to get rid of eyeglasses? Do you want to get rid of indoor plumbing? How do you feel about thumbs and fire? You do a thought experiment, and a lot of our development as human beings has been technological, the wheel, But I think you're absolutely right. And even technology, if we incorporated what you're saying, can be way more harmonious with nature itself and what's already present. Biomimicry, I think, is a wonderful concept to integrate into technology. And it's really, like you said, when we got into these industrial processes that are so chemical dependent, we talked a couple weeks ago about electromagnetic radiation. Like we're just steeped in all these waves, whether it be Wi-Fi or 5G towers or the phones that are sitting by my crotch right now. It's like there's something going on there, and it could just be a matter of better design principles that take into account that nature knows how to take care of us, and mostly what we need to do is understand how nature works and dial in better. But when we're talking about food, like you said, it's like it comes from the earth. We evolved with it, literally, if you believe in evolution. We're talking millions of years of plants and animals living together in ecosystems, taking care of themselves and just naturally flourishing. In a lot of ways, we just need to get out of our own way.
When you have to make a special trip to go into nature,
yeah,
Gaia is our home, and she is a living, breathing organism, self-healing, self-correcting, self-balancing, self-harmonizing, and when out of harmony, we know it too, because we get unusual weather patterns.
Totally.
Not to be confused with HARP.
Right.
Right. But I'm not making a sweeping statement about going back to the Dark Ages.
Oh, and I knew you weren't. It was just a good opportunity to mention that point.
Good opportunity to make that distinction, and I can appreciate that. And I'm right on the borderline, though, because I
feel you.
I'm a Luddite. I am definitely,
That's fair, and no shame here. I respect it.
Heard me say this. If Yvonne's still here, maybe she's not. But there was a space I jumped into a few weeks ago about AI, and how I had written something for this beautiful group of people that we're building our website for something, and I'll be sharing that probably next month. It's an exciting movement around health and food. But the beautiful guardian of this movement ran my words that I had written into AI through AI. And I was absolutely horrified, because what came out had no heart. It had no feelings. It was
very sterile.
No, yes. And it had no, and I'm a writer and a poet and a songwriter. And like every word is imbued with my feelings and my energy. And it was like as if I had lovingly prepared a 5-course meal, and then somebody ran it through a food grinder. That's what it felt like. Oh. So I growl at AI. I'm close to it as far as my own creations, but I can appreciate other things that are going on that I really don't yet understand. That one of my ears is open to that. But just getting back to food, I was relating so much to whoever it was talking about being sensitive to the smell of the laundry detergent and walking down the street. I'm that person. And it's right now I'm staying in an apartment in New York City, so you can imagine.
Ooh.
And just walking down the street, it's coming out of the basements, that wherever the washing machines are, people wash their clothes in this stuff. And then a person standing next to a person on the street, walking past a person, being in line next to a person, that their clothes reek of their dryer sheets and of Downy and
I got kicked out of a family gathering one time because my grandma's sensitive to it, and I thought I was being nice. I put on a little cologne or perfume before I went to the gathering. She made me change into one of her ugly sweaters, and I had to wear the sweater of shame the entire time. But it's so real. We're literally kind of poisoning the people around us, right?
Absolutely. And some people, I'm an ultra sensitive. And I'm environmentally sensitive. There are people, there are many of us. But I do feel very blessed, because all these things we're talking about, I knew instinctively. I've known for decades. I've been barking about this for many decades. But, I trust my instincts, and it's taken me a very long time into my middle years to really be able to trust what I always knew was true, but that I was the odd man out of the crowd. You know, I was the one making much ado about what they thought was nothing, but actually, guess what? And as far as sunscreen goes, I'm a surfer without the board. I'm a beach freak. I am an ocean swimmer. I've been in a major winter depression without sun, being on the East Coast. I'm about to head down to Virginia Beach for a few months of sun and beach and healing time. And that, for me, you know, we're electromagnetic beings.
Totally.
And to me, I have to have the sun. I very rarely use sunscreen. Occasionally, I might use a little on my face if I'm going to be out in the sun a long time. But I just use coconut oil or nothing. And that works great. And getting in the ocean for me, literally, it's an electromagnetic charge. When my battery is low, my tank is empty, all I have to do is get into the ocean and I'm reborn.
Love that.
There's such a power to listening to your intuition. And I'm really glad you backed that up, because a lot of these things that we've known for so long, they're just right, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some interesting research on that element of sun, and I'm the same with the beach. I've always been that way. When I live 2.5 hours, 2 hours from Ocean City, Maryland, and when I drive there, it's just a refresh. And I didn't know what SAD was, seasonally affected disorder. Literally, as a 40-year-old guy moving to California, when I went out there and I got all the sun, I was like, "What's so great about here?" And I moved back in 2016.
Yeah,
in 2016, I was like, why am I depressed? I moved back in September of 2016, and that winter, I was talking to someone. They said, "Oh, you have SAD." I said, "No, I'm not sad. I don't know what it is." Like, no, you have seasonal. And that's when I realized what it was.
Totally.
And
I'm from
the
California.
research on it.
I get you.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, but we moved to California, and I'm all about California. And I keep telling people on the East Coasters just sit around complaining about the weather all the time because the weather's shitty. And I say, you know what? It'll be like 3 days out of the year that I feel good. It's sunny, it's deep blue sky, and it's dry. And I feel euphoric. And I go around and I'm like, isn't it beautiful? It's so incredible. I feel like myself again. And I say, you see this day? See how incredible it is and beautiful it is? And the sunset is all purple and orange and red and beautiful. I said, see this? This is what it's like in California every day.
Yeah, I low-key miss it. That part about it, at least. It was really beautiful.
There's a guy named Jack Cruz, JACKKRUSE. He's been
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. He's the guy who's he's an exiled neurosurgeon. If you search his name, that's one of the first things that'll come up. He's been on Danny Jones and a number of other great podcasts. He talks all about the blue light. He talks all about the sun, sunglasses. He's got very interesting research on that. He doesn't agree with sunscreen. He thinks that your body needs the sun, and when you put that on, you actually get the rays you don't need. You remove the rays you do need, and his body imbalances. Same with sunglasses. Claims that you filter out the stuff that you do need, and you leave in the stuff that you don't need, and that creates metabolic and vitamin uptake that's different in your body and creates other issues. Very interesting. The thing about all this, I'll say, is that there's so much detail and information out there that you can get confused, and I think each person has to, wear your sunglasses. It's fine. Are you going to die from it? My mom and my aunt, they're a little older. Like, we don't know what to do. And like, should I eat the bread? Should I not eat the bread? And, as I'm sitting there fixing a sandwich with some non-organic bread, like, you know what? I'm going to eat this bread. It is what it is. We all have to pick and choose our things. A good example is I have a grounding mat I sleep on. My wife doesn't sleep on it. My wife wakes up and she does the oil pulling with black cumin seed oil and her coconut oil. I don't really do that. I do it once every couple of weeks. She's religious. 20 minutes in, like the whole thing, right? So we all pick our thing and do the thing, and you're not going to be perfect. And I realize I'm around people and they get really upset. I can't afford it. I can't do that. Just do the things. Just don't fear. Just do the things that you can. Pull the things that are close to you that you can do. Pull those in. The things that you can't. Don't have the fear. Just do what you can.
Yeah, and it feels like one of the hardest parts to all of this is that we don't really have the backing of the medical community. There's a misalignment of interest where they're not doing this research. We're all sort of shooting in the dark and choosing what to believe. and it gets difficult to decide what to do. Sometimes it's even hard to notice if it's making a difference, because a lot of these things we're bringing into our body really only have a major impact over a long period of time. And by the time something bad happens, can you pinpoint that it was plastic exposure or what? And I'm praying that with the influence of Bobby at HHS, that we can turn the tide here and learn more concretely through good science what is what, because that will help to move the market and even regulations, so that rather than having to think too much about this stuff, the things that are available off the shelf are more in line with what's good for us.
The people who need the science, that will help to turn the tide. But I don't need the science, because I trust myself. I trust the beautiful, divine inner golden compass that God gave me to know what's true and what's not true, and what's good for me and what's not good for me. But it's taken me my whole life to deprogram.
Well, and that's exactly
really
the challenge, right? Because a lot of people, they're out here and they're drinking from the fire hose because they're just drowning in information. And a lot of this information, even in the alternative medicine space and nutrition space, is contradictory. Some people say carnivore. Some people actually say eat loads of sugar, and I mean, and they're trying to figure it out, but their wires are scrambled, so they don't know how to trust their own intuition. Their own intuition might not even be right now because of how much that's been influenced by the programming they've gone through. So it's like you said, it's taken you your whole life to sort that out.
Yeah, I trust my intuition, and I know my intuition works when I'm not in fear.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When I'm anchored in love, and when I'm relaxed, I'm not triggered.
Absolutely.
In anxiety, then my intuition is, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But when I'm in fear, because I come from trauma, when I get triggered and I'm in fear, I cannot make major decisions when I'm in that state, because I'm not even in my body.
Yeah, well, they even recommend not to make major decisions if you're in emotional turmoil about it. You really have to sort of ground. Something I wanted to bring up, because we're reaching the end here. When you said that the one underlying thing that is what is wrong is that we've gotten so far away from nature. We've gotten so far away from what's natural. The quote from the Bible that the meek shall inherit the earth. I don't know if this is true, but it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I heard that a more accurate translation of that phrase was those in harmony or in alignment with nature shall inherit the earth. And it just totally shifted the entire perspective, because it's not like those who are quiet or harmless or whatever. No, and again, I don't know if this is true or
those that
I don't know if it's true or not, but no, in harmony with nature. The exact thing that Martha's saying, that all of our industrial processes and our over reliance on technology and all that stuff. Imagine a cataclysm happens where our entire industrial process breaks down. Who's going to be left? Who can handle it? Those who still knew how to live off the land and live in harmony with the land. Those who were still in harmony with nature.
It's fun though, guys. We have to remember how fun it is to do these things and implement these little solutions in our lives. We can't get overwhelmed, because that's why we do Friday Fun Day. Every Friday space that we do, it's fun. What are the solutions that we can implement? Take your family to the beach. That's fun. You know what I mean? We have to rally around the funness of getting back to nature. The fun.
I agree, Krista. I totally agree. And one thing I've noticed about these days, is that people are not having fun.
We're not having fun.
I remember how much fun I had in the 70s. Even in the 90s, I was having fun. But people today they're not having fun. Most people are not having fun. This is
and I would guess that that's one of the worst medical crises we have, is that without joy in our lives, it's easily replaced with either stress or emptiness, and that's deadly. Being sad, being lonely, we have an epidemic of loneliness. All those things are objectively bad for our health.
And the fear, because we are this family, the human family of the United States and America, and everybody's fighting. There's a war. We're a nation at war with itself. and we're all like little kids, like, stop fighting,
right,
stop fighting. And I feel that way all the time. Like really, like ramped up with this anxiety because I follow it very closely in my activism work. You know, so you can't like not know that it's happening. But it's really like, it really is. It's hard to have fun when everybody's scared.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
it's
the
fun.
part of and the part about fighting as a grassroots organizer, boy, do I know what you're talking about. And it's one of the reasons we're so conscious to craft a community and a space here that's not predicated on antagonism. Even when we're talking about challenging issues and we're talking shit about Monsanto and they kind of deserve it, we're not drumming up this like anger activism vibe. And when we talk about issues that might be controversial, we really want a space here where people can show up with different opinions and speak with respect and recognize they're in a place where everyone actually kind of cares about each other. This isn't about scoring points. It's not about grabbing spotlight. It's just that all that stuff that sells really well and the algorithm seems to really like it. Like it might be one of the reasons that this space isn't like crazy huge in general, though it has been growing so nicely, is because we're not doing those standard things that seem really sensational and seem to bring in a lot of folks. I would rather this be a small space of people with open hearts and open minds, because I think that builds more sustainably and it builds towards what we want. It doesn't matter if we have 1,000 people in here if it's a bad attitude and it's not actually on a path to get us where we want to go. What's the point?
Totally agree. You know, the first, and people, a space where people can feel safe to be joyful. And those of us who remember joy, and my email is actually joy is the key. I haven't been feeling too joyful lately, but I know about joy. And
come hang out with us. You know,
oh yeah, I'm so happy to find you. And I just want to say last thing, that Henry James said, one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. He says, there are 3 rules in life. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. And kindness is love. And that's what heals the world.
Yeah, I do my best with it. And it's easy for a lot of people to think that might be naive. And there's times where our actions may be driven by kindness, but they might need to also be sort of resolved. And there's a lot of spaces in our world where soft kindness does not push through in ways it needs to. But I absolutely agree with you and Henry James. I try so hard to be rooted in kindness, compassion, empathy, patience, curiosity, and all those things. And I fail all the time too, because I'm just, we're all steeped in this bad attitude. But
we all do. I stumble every day. But Bobby Kennedy is a great way shower.
It's a great example.
Because he's a fierce warrior for truth when it comes to principle. But in terms of personality, he remains kind. And
that's so well said.
That's the great balance. And
it was a great example, right? Because even when he was talking critically about anything, he always refused to overtly talk shit about his political adversaries.
That's right.
He was always conscious, always considerate. It was always about the issues and the details, not about the personalities or sniping at one another. He really has been just an excellent example. It's the only reason I'm even here now in this MAHA movement is because I picked up on his campaign and he just exemplified so much I was looking for in politics. I'm thrilled that he almost accidentally created this movement by saying "Make America Healthy Again" on stage with Donald, and then we all said, "Oh, that's good. Let's run with that."
Yep.
And that's why we're here.
I volunteered in his campaign for the whole time.
Awesome.
And
yeah.
So that was a big day. That was quite a day. August 23rd.
Yeah, and that was hard for me because I was only on the campaign trail. I was with Kyle Kemper doing the RV tour, and we were up in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Henpeck in the DNC, and it was the best time. It had been years since I had gotten involved in like activism, like political activism.
I know Kyle.
Yeah.
I rode on the bus with Kyle on July 4th.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that must have been right before I linked up with him. I mean, we've been friends for years, but we had to get some funding for me to actually go on the road with him. But we did that week, and I was over the moon. I couldn't wait to run it straight through Election Day. And then the end of the week, I'm on cloud 9, and Bobby concedes the election. and it broke my heart. I was suddenly had no idea what I was going to do. And then thankfully, a number of days later, he sort of coined that term, and we were like, we should run with this. And we've been doing MAHA ever since. So yeah, I've been really thrilled. So Martha, we do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 p.m. It's often weightier topics. The Fridays tend to be a little more like personal decisions and like lazy gardening and healthy home hacks and stuff. But we'd love to have you back. You're a great member of the community.
Thank you. I love being here.
Yeah, awesome. We love having you here. But we have been going for a little over 2 hours now, and we usually close it out at the 2-hour mark, unless it's like just a super rich and fired up conversation. And it feels like this might be a good time to close it out, unless anyone has any last minute thoughts.
I just have a question. What's your name?
Oh, okay. So I know on my profile picture here, it just looks like MAHA Da. My name is Damien, and I go by Damo.
Oh, okay.
And I threw the MAHA in there because I actually changed my profile from like a totally anonymous profile to using a real picture of me, and wanted to like directly associate with the MAHA movement when I did it.
Okay. Damo, very great to meet you.
You too, Martha. Thanks so much for being here.
That picture makes me think of Jamiroquai. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. He's a really cool dude. But yeah, when I look at that picture, that's the first thing I think. Is that Jamiroquai? I
kind of love that, because there was like a good 10 or 15 year period where he wasn't coming to the United States, and he was one of 2 acts that I always like told people I would leave the country to see, Jamiroquai and Daft Punk.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm there with you.
Those were the 2.
Sanity.
Yeah, seriously though. Go through the discography. Most of his albums are great. Anyway, super grateful for everyone being here on Good Friday. It was a really nice chat. We'll come back to things like healthy home hacks, and we should all go and participate in the Midday MAHA X community. It's a great place to drop your ideas and your thoughts, and even if you're like worried about something in your home, just let us know, and I'm sure someone will respond. It's just such a great place for that. And we'll be back Monday. I don't think we've picked a topic or found a guest yet, but we'll be back Monday. And yeah, can't wait to see you all again. Really appreciate you. Have a great week.